Got a new piston in the mail. So I like the Shindy pistons. They make a good piston. You can get a standard size piston you see here, STD. If you're not familiar with that, it has a different meaning nowadays, but that means it stands for standard. You can get these oversized, of course, if you want to punch them out. You have your piston, you have your wrist pin, you have a circlip. I've already installed one circlip on the back side. You have your oil retaining rings. So you have a lower, this wafer looking ring here, that's going to be your middle. And then you've got another ring that those all fit in the same groove on the lowest groove on your piston. Then you have your compression ring, and then you have your secondary ring, which I believe is considered an oil ring, or it could be a secondary compression ring, I'm not sure. They are indicated, they are marked top and bottom. If you look really, really close here, if I can get the camera to focus, you will find a letter T. And so that's top, that's going up. You want to make sure that that's on there and that's going the right direction. Sometimes you'll find different manufacturers, they'll have a dot. It'll be just one single dot. And that would also indicate the top of the piston. You may find that it would be one dot for the very top and two for the second ring going down, and so forth. Now the way I like to do them is I just barely get the ring started, and I always start with the wafer ring and just walk it around. I don't want to stretch it more so than necessary to get it on. My next ring is going to be the oil ring. It's going to be the lower one. Now these are not marked anywhere that I can see. Every kit's a little different. Again, I'm not going to stretch the ring any more than I have to. I do want to go ahead and get it started just below the wafer ring. I'm just going to walk it all the way around until it seats also in that lowest groove on your piston, just like that. Okay. Make sure that the wafer ring going around does not overlap. If it overlaps, it's going to be too small. All right, now we're going to take our upper oil ring, and it's going to go in the same groove as the first two. And just like that. Now that pack is set. Now you do want to keep an eye out on, this is the opening for the upper ring in that pack, and this is the opening for the lower. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that lower, whichever one's the easiest to get your finger on, and I'm going to spin it 180 out. Now I've been told this has been disproven, that the rings walk around, but you certainly don't want them to start in the same location. All right, so those are 180 out from one another. Now we have one opening here and the other opening here. So now we're going to go back to our middle rings. This one is marked with a T on the top. This is your secondary ring. So we're going to take our ring, I'm going to hold it on the top, and I'm going to bring one end down. I'll make sure it gets started good in that groove. Then I'm going to open the ring up just a little bit and let it go all the way down to its home. Okay, there you go. Second ring is in place. Now our top ring is marked with the letter T. It's right here on the top, so we know that it's the top, it's going up on our piston. I'm going to do it the same way and get it started. I'm just going to barely open it up until it fits on there. Now make sure that those two gaps on those two rings are 180 out, and they are. It's like a Rubik's Cube here. And now I want to make sure that those two are opposite of the lower two. And that is all there is to putting rings on a piston. Now we'll put the piston onto our rod like so. We'll put a little grease on our wrist pin. I'm going to go ahead and get it started into the piston like so. So double check your orientation. I've already got the circlip on the back side. Our intake is going to be on the right side the way I'm holding it. Carburetor sits here, goes into the piston. I'm going to lower it down onto the rod, and I'm going to slide the wrist pin through once it lines up. All right. Probably the most difficult part at this point, and this is what all the napkins and the towels are for here, is you don't want to drop the wrist pin into the bottom of the engine, into the case. What's up, Chloe? Hey everybody, Chloe came out to the shop. Hey. Say hello. Yeah. All right, she doesn't talk much. So the way I start these is I take the end of the circlip and I get it started in the lower section here, in this little cutout in the bottom of the piston. Like that. So that's how I start it. I put the circlip just into that bottom of that recess in that little notch, and I hold it with my finger. Like that. Okay? You can take a punch or a screwdriver or whatever you have laying around. Screwdriver actually looks pretty good, a flathead screwdriver. And I just walk the piston around, or walk the circlip around until it finds its home in there. And it's really not that much tension on it. Just keep your finger on it so it doesn't go flying across the shop. If you listen close, there you go. Put your circlip in just like that. You want to make sure that it's seated all the way around. You can double check that, but just running an awl or your screwdriver, just make sure it's seated all the way across, all the way around. And again, having that little wire across that bottom part keeps that little bottom part closed. All right. So now we've installed a piston. Now the next thing we're going to want to do, this is a standard size piston with standard size rings, and we're going to go into a worn cylinder. So what we want to look for is we're going to clean the cylinder up. This is the way it came off the bike. It's in good shape. It's actually not bad at all. There are some scratches in it. It's going to be this kind of mileage on it, age. So what we are going to do is we are going to hone it. And so I'm going to take these pins out. I'm going to clean this up over on the wire wheel and solvent tank, and we'll be right back with you. All right, so now we're going to hone our cylinder just a little bit. We really don't want to take a lot of material, really any material out. We are not boring this cylinder, we are just honing this cylinder. So what we're trying to achieve here is we want to get a nice cross hatch pattern back on our cylinder. So our new rings will have something to seat to. So this is not a, so this is how I do it. You always want to keep it moving. You never want to let it stop. And that's really all there is to it. We'll check it. See what kind of, there we go. Check this out for you. There you go. You can see our cross pattern there. Cross hatching. All right, so we've got our crank locked down with our wire to top dead center. We've got our piston installed. We've got our both circlips on either side. We've got our rings pack already installed and our gaps phased 180 out. We've got our case clean and we are ready for a new gasket. This does go on a particular way. You see there's an opening here. I'll point to it in just a second. You could say that just the writing is up, but more importantly is this opening here. You want to make sure that that opening, that is your oil galley. You want to make sure that that is lined up there. You don't want to block that off. You can put this gasket on the other way around and block that off mistakenly. Now, there's two different ways to do this. We'll see which way is going to work today. Again, I take grease, I put it on the inside of the cylinder. Pretty literal at this point. Now yes, it is going to smoke when it first starts up. You got assembly lube and grease in your engine. It's going to smoke a little bit when you first run it. You're going to run it a few hours or a few minutes, and then you're going to want to dump it, the oil out of it. So we got our gasket in place. We're ready to put our cylinder in place. I'm going to bring it down. Now you can feel these rings. You can compress them with your fingers, and the head or the cylinder will slide down on top of them. And that's all there is to it. Now I have used a spring compressor before. Looks like an oil filter wrench. And squeeze the rings. But I was told that taking them slow like that was not good for the rings. All right, so we got our cylinder or our jug installed. We got our piston and rings installed. We got our base gasket installed. Got one more video on that. We're gonna put it back in the bike and we're gonna cold start it. We're gonna fire it up from scratch. I won't start it without you. So hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and as soon as that video comes out, you'll know about it. Thanks for watching, I appreciate it.